thought the first 10, 12 minutes, they, playing that zone, I thought it was effective primarily. They weren't fouling. And Wisconsin does such a great job against man defenses of drawing fouls, and they're unbelievable free throw shooting team. I think they're the best free throw shooting team in the country, and they take the most free throws in the country. That's a pretty good combination. And then he left the zone, and I thought there was a questionable substitution, rotation in there that all of a sudden they couldn't score, and then it just was an avalanche. So, I mean, I thought they were right with them for the first 10 or 12 minutes and playing pretty well, but they were trading hoops, and Wisconsin tightened the reins a little bit defensively, and Iowa didn't. And it was a runaway. It's an embarrassment for them. They got to feel disappointed in how that game turned out.
I want to look at the macro before we kind of delve back into the micro, Gary. You used the word embarrassment, and I was thinking that towards the end of this game. The silver lining here, if you're Iowa, is it's one game. It's a game where I don't think most people expected Iowa to go on the road and win at the Kohl Center. You, of all people, know how difficult it is to do that. But at the same time, giving up 116 and getting throttled like they did, it is an embarrassment. And I'm just curious, is there value there? I know that sounds almost like I'm patronizing the players, but is there value in getting embarrassed to where it almost makes you angry and you play better? Have you seen that transpire with teams in the past?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's about the only way you could look at it. It's one game, and you just got it handed to you. And if you're any kind of a competitor, that's got to drive you crazy. And I think they've got some competitive kids on that team. And so I think the other thing it does, if they've been telling them the defense isn't good enough, and they didn't quite believe what they were saying, they do now. It's sometimes you can look at percentage and go, oh, we're playing pretty good defense, but you're giving up wide shots for the team just either isn't good enough or had a cold night. And then you run into a team where you're giving open shots that can shoot, and they shot like they shot tonight. And then it can snowball. There are guys making shots that don't normally make them, but there's no pressure, and they're still wide open. If you look at the quality of shots the last 25 to 30 minutes in terms of pressure on shooters, it was night and day. And that's why Iowa cooled off a little bit and still scored 80-some points, but Wisconsin did, and then almost scored 120, which is an incredible amount of baskets. So, I think they got to realize they've got some work to do on the defensive end if they want to compete in this league.
I made a comment before you hopped on with us, Gary, that, and I don't expect you to agree with this, but my opinion regarding Payton Sandfort, and you feel bad for the kid. You can see him on the sidelines. We picked up that third foul, and he knew he was just going to be off the rest of the night. He came back in, couldn't make a shot. He ended up 1 of 9 from the field. But I made a comment at the outset that I think he's the most overrated star player under Fran. And that's not that sounds disrespectful to him, but I'm thinking about all the offensive leaders for Fran McCaffrey coach teams since he got here back in 2009. And I think he's the most overrated player because he doesn't defend, and he's an average rebounder, at least right now. I thought he was a better rebounder last year. I think he's regressed in that stratosphere. And at the same time, he is so inconsistent right now. I mean, he was 0 for 5 from 3. He's failed to show up in the big games. One game that comes to mind was the Iowa State game. They really needed him. The team played great, and he struggled. And then, of course, tonight on the road. And he's got a lot of season left. But somebody asked me earlier, is he actually an NBA player? And my question to you, Gary, is he consistent enough? Here, we're almost midway through his final year at Iowa. Do you think he's an NBA player?
No, I don't. I mean, guards in the NBA are a dime a dozen. I mean, there's so many good guards in that league that, right now, probably not, but it can turn around quickly. I think they did a good job on him. I don't think he got very few open looks, and then you take some highly contested, tough shots and don't make them, and you think you're not shooting very well, and then you get some wide open ones that you rush and your confidence is down a little bit. And I've always questioned his shot selection. I think it's great that Fran gives him the green light, but there's a fine line in there to where if you're shooting bad quality shots and they're not going in because they're well guarded, you can think you're not shooting very well, but you're taking shots that are tough to make, and I don't care who you are. So he needs to get some good wide open looks early. He needs to get to the free throw line. He needs to get some easy baskets. And he's got to understand that he's probably the first guy on the scouting report, and they'll put their best defender on him. And, he's going to have to work on becoming a better offensive player, but it can turn around. I think he's a pretty good player. He did not play well tonight. And there's still some basketball left.
Is this the type of loss? I know it's just one, and it's not like they've been losing heading into this game. They're 1-2 in the conference, had a good win against Northwestern, squandered a chance at Michigan. So they haven't lost at home, and they were competitive in the other road game in the conference. But Gary, after a loss like this, is this the type of game where you as a coach want one of your players to step up? And I don't say you have to do the cliche players only meeting, but is there a need after a game like this for someone to take the lead and kind of snap people back into reality?
Well, yeah, you would like, you'd like to see something like that. I think it's something that you hope just evolves on their own, not something that's orchestrated, or then it's kind of fake and it doesn't do any good anyway. It's got to be something that's genuine, and they've got to be embarrassed. I mean, that's, I don't know what they thought of Wisconsin going in. Wisconsin hasn't got a Big Ten win yet prior to this game. So you knew that they were going to be ready to play. They could not afford to be 0-3 in the league with 2 losses coming at home. They were going to get their best effort. And, if they thought that they were getting a lesser quality Wisconsin team because of the 2 losses, then they were sadly mistaken, because they lost a tough game at home to a pretty good Michigan team right at the end of the game. And they gave Illinois a pretty good game up until about the last 3 or 4 minutes. And we've seen what Illinois has done. So their 2 losses aren't that bad, although one of them is at home. So you knew you were going to get a great effort from them. And I was wondering, they had taken a long time off. They had only played 1 game in like 20 days. And I really thought that maybe Iowa could get off to a quick start.
I agree.
And maybe they'd be a little bit rusty.
Yep.
But the problem was the shots were so easy.
Yes.
That whether it was a layup or a wide open 3, they never really got tested. And, they shot with them for the first 10 or 12 minutes. Neither team played a whole lot of defense. And then Wisconsin tightened the reins a little bit and made it a little more difficult to score. And that's where they broke the game open. And then they went man, and they had no answer in their man. I think Wisconsin played very well.
Yes. I think Josh Dix right now is this team's best player. And boy, I never expected to see 14 attempts out of Drew Thelwell. And, he had some misses in there, but I thought for a lot of this game, he looked like the best player in black, and he stayed engaged and involved even when they fell down. Maybe if there's a positive, it's a close to a career high. He had 27 at Morehead State, and I don't have the substitution patterns here, but I know exactly what change you're talking about, and I believe that stretch where Iowa really struggled, especially on the offensive end, and it kind of got away from them. It was a combination of Traore, Thelwell. I think Owen Freeman was on the court at that point. Perhaps Price a little bit.
Cooper Koch, I think was. It was a substitution, kind of a bunch of them all at once, and I'm not even sure Freeman was on the floor. And he's got to pick it up. He's their best inside scorer. He is not finishing inside like he's capable of finishing. He had some point blank shots that he misses too many of those. And when you need a bucket, you need to go inside and draw a foul or get a strong move going towards the hoop. And he didn't give that to him tonight. Now, Wisconsin is big. Those 2 guys are big and winners emerging into a really good player. And the Blackwell kid is one of the best guards in the league. So, I mean, they're a pretty good team. They had a stretch where they didn't play very well, and mostly because of their defense. But you knew you were going to face a fired up team because if they lose tonight, they're 0-3 in the league, and people are worried.
Was there lack of effort? Because I certainly felt like there was with closeouts, especially.
I don't know if it's a lack of effort. I think it's a lack of urgency, a lack of sticking to what you got to do. I mean, they're just giving up way too many open shots. And like I said before, sometimes you go through a game, you look at some teams' percentages, and they shoot 25% from three. But if you go back and look at the tape, they had 10 wide open shots that they missed, or either they're a bad shooting team or they just had a bad night. And you can't live that way. You got to point it out. Hey, this is a wide open shot. A good team is going to make this. And they ran into a good team tonight, a good shooting team. That's a good shooting team. And they shoot a lot of threes. And so if you go back and look at all the threes they shot, I'd be lucky to think there were 5 contested 3-point shots that they took. I think the rest of them were wide open. And then you get on a roll and you can't stop them. So their ability to close out and put pressure on shooters without fouling is something they've got to work on. They're just giving up way too many open threes. And, we've said it before, you give up wide open threes or you give up layups, you're in trouble. And they got a fair amount of wide open layups to go along with their threes. That's how you score nearly 120 points.